If you own a gaming PC, or even if you are just thinking about building one, what you are about to hear might genuinely change how you play games for years to come. Microsoft has quietly been rolling out a series of updates to Windows 11 throughout 2026, and when you put all the pieces together, this is not just another routine patch. This is one of the biggest shifts in PC gaming history, and most players have no idea it is even happening. Today, we are going to break down exactly what this new Windows update does, why it matters so much for gamers, and how it could completely reshape the relationship between Windows, Xbox, and every PC gamer around the world. Stick around until the end, because the final piece of this update might be the one that affects you the most. Let's start with the basics. For years, PC gaming has had one persistent problem that console gaming never really had to deal with in the same way. That problem is inconsistency. When you buy a console, you know exactly what hardware is inside it, and developers can build their games around that fixed set of specifications. On a PC, every single machine is different. Different graphics cards, different processors, different amounts of memory, different drivers, different storage speeds. This has always been the trade-off for PC gaming. You get incredible flexibility and raw power, but you also get stutter, long loading times, shader compilation lag, and a setup process that can feel intimidating for newcomers. Microsoft's new wave of Windows updates is aimed directly at solving this decades-old problem, and they are doing it in a way that borrows heavily from the console world while still keeping the openness that makes PC gaming special. The centerpiece of this transformation is something Microsoft is calling Xbox Mode. If you have not heard of it yet, you are about to understand why so many people in the gaming community are calling this the biggest change to Windows as a gaming platform in years. Xbox Mode essentially turns your Windows 11 PC into something that looks and feels like a console the moment you turn it on. Instead of booting into the traditional desktop with icons, a taskbar, and a mouse-driven interface, Xbox Mode gives you a full-screen, controller-first experience built around the Xbox app. Think of it as a dashboard that prioritizes your games, your friends list, and your library, while quietly reducing background processes and distractions running behind the scenes. Microsoft has confirmed that this feature began appearing internally as something called Xbox Full Screen Experience, and it has now been rebranded and expanded into the full Xbox Mode that is rolling out across all Windows 11 PC form factors, including desktops, laptops, tablets, and especially handheld gaming PCs. That last part is important because handheld gaming PCs have exploded in popularity over the past few years. These are small, portable devices that run full Windows, but are shaped and sized like a modern console controller. The problem has always been that Windows was never designed with a handheld device in mind. Navigating the traditional desktop with tiny buttons and thumbsticks has always felt clunky and awkward. Xbox Mode fixes this directly by giving handheld PC owners a smooth console-style interface that is actually built for a controller from the ground up. When you enable it, you get a full-screen dashboard, faster access to your games, and a system that automatically deprioritizes background tasks, so more of your PC's power goes straight into the game you're playing. Early testers have reported that switching into Xbox Mode feels less like using a computer and more like turning on a console, which is exactly what Microsoft is going for. You might be wondering how you actually turn this on if you already have Windows 11 installed. According to Microsoft, once your PC receives the update, you will be able to configure Xbox Mode directly inside Settings, under the Gaming section, where a new toggle appears specifically for this feature. It is designed to be simple enough that anyone can switch between the traditional desktop and the new console-style experience whenever they want, without needing to reinstall anything or mess with complicated settings menus. This flexibility is actually one of the smartest parts of the whole update, because it means PC gamers are not being forced to give up the desktop experience they are used to. Instead, they are being given a choice, which is very much in line with the philosophy that has always separated PC gaming from consoles. Now, let's talk about something that has quietly frustrated PC gamers for years, but has never gotten as much attention as it deserves, and that is shader compilation stutter. If you have ever launched a brand new game and noticed weird little freezes or hitches during the first hour of gameplay, especially when new visual effects appear on screen for the first time, you have experienced this exact issue. It happens because your graphics card needs to compile shaders, which are essentially small programs that tell your GPU how to render specific visual effects, textures, and lighting. On a console, this problem barely exists because every unit has identical hardware, so developers can pre-compile shaders ahead of time. On PC, because there are thousands of different hardware combinations, shaders often have to be compiled on the fly, right there in real time, while you're trying to enjoy your game. This is one of the most common complaints in PC gaming communities, and it has been a technical challenge that Microsoft has apparently decided to tackle head-on. Their solution is called Advanced Shader Delivery, and it was one of the headline announcements tied to this update. The idea behind advanced shader delivery is fairly clever. Developers can now collect and package shaders during the development process itself, essentially preparing them ahead of time instead of leaving your PC to figure them out during actual gameplay. When a game gets published, these shader packages can be processed through the Xbox Partner Center, which means supported devices can automatically detect and receive these pre-compiled shader packages before you even launch the game for the first time. In simple terms, this means faster startup times, more predictable performance, and dramatically reduced stuttering the very first time you play a game. Microsoft has described this as a foundational shift in how PC games handle shaders at scale, and if it works as intended across a wide range of titles, it could genuinely eliminate one of the most annoying technical issues that has plagued PC gaming for over a decade. What makes this especially significant is that Microsoft is not keeping advanced shader delivery limited to a small group of partners. They have confirmed that they are expanding it to all game developers, allowing any studio to future-proof their titles and self-enable support through the Xbox Store system. This is a big deal because it means the benefits are not going to be locked behind exclusive deals or limited to a handful of AAA studios. Independent developers and smaller teams will also be able to take advantage of this technology, which could lead to smoother performance across a much wider variety of games, not just the biggest blockbuster releases. Alongside advanced shader delivery, Microsoft has also been pushing forward with major improvements to DirectStorage, which is another piece of technology that directly impacts how fast your games load and how smoothly assets stream into your world as you play. If you're not familiar with DirectStorage, think of it as a modern highway system for data moving between your storage drive and your graphics card. Traditionally, when a game needed to load new textures or assets, that data had to travel through several layers of software, get processed by your CPU, and then eventually reach your GPU. This process created bottlenecks, especially as games started using larger and more detailed assets. DirectStorage was designed to streamline this pathway, allowing data to move more directly from your storage drive to your GPU with much less overhead. The newest updates take this even further by introducing support for standard compression, along with a new tool called the Game Asset Conditioning Library. Without getting too technical, this basically means that game assets can now be compressed more efficiently and prepared in a way that is easier for developers to work with across their entire production pipeline. The result is expanded high throughput streaming, which reduces input and output latency and increases the overall throughput of data-heavy environments. In plain language, this means bigger, more detailed game worlds can stream in faster. Load screens can shrink or disappear entirely in some cases, and games can respond more quickly as you move through large open environments. If you have ever played an open world game and noticed textures popping in late or areas taking a few seconds too long to fully render as you approach them, this is exactly the kind of issue these improvements are aimed at solving. Microsoft has even hinted that machine learning is becoming a core part of how DirectX handles real-time graphics moving forward, suggesting that future updates will continue to lean on artificial intelligence to help manage rendering, asset streaming, and performance optimization automatically, without requiring players to manually tweak settings. This points toward a future where your PC intelligently adjusts itself in real time to deliver the best possible performance based on your specific hardware, rather than relying on generic settings that try to work for everyone, but end up being perfectly optimized for almost no one. There's another piece of this update that gaming monitor enthusiasts have been waiting for, and that is native support for extremely high refresh rate displays. Competitive gamers, especially those playing fast-paced shooters, have been pushing monitor technology well beyond the traditional 144 or 240 Hz range, with some displays now reaching speeds of 1000 Hz or higher. The problem is that Windows historically has not always handled these ultra-high refresh rates cleanly, sometimes causing inconsistencies or requiring extra configuration to get the full benefit of the hardware. With this update, Windows 11 is receiving proper native support for these next-generation monitors, which means smoother motion clarity, reduced input lag, and a more seamless experience for anyone investing in the latest high refresh rate gaming displays. For competitive players in games where every millisecond matters, this kind of foundational operating system level support can make a real difference. Now, let's talk about something that might sound small on paper but actually has a big impact on daily usability, and that is the changes Microsoft has made to how Windows Update itself behaves. This might not sound like a gaming feature at first, but trust me, it absolutely is. Anyone who has ever been in the middle of an intense multiplayer match or a long single-player session only to have Windows suddenly demand a restart for an update knows exactly how disruptive this can be. With the new changes, Windows 11 introduces a redesigned pause updates feature that allows users to delay system updates for up to 35 days at a time, and this pause period can now be extended repeatedly and indefinitely if you choose to. On top of that, Microsoft has restructured how driver, .NET, and firmware updates that require a restart are scheduled. bundling them into a single monthly quality update, so your computer only needs to reboot once a month instead of constantly interrupting your sessions. For gamers, this means far less chance of your PC forcing an unexpected restart right in the middle of a raid, a ranked match, or a boss fight you have been trying to beat for an hour. Beyond these headline features, there are a number of smaller but meaningful improvements bundled into this wave of updates that specifically target the gaming experience. File Explorer has been optimized to launch faster and eliminate that annoying white flash that used to appear when opening windows or resizing them, which might sound minor. But for streamers and content creators who are constantly multitasking between their game and other applications, small performance improvements like this add up. There have also been updates to how Windows handles driver trust and security, tightening things up so that only drivers signed through the official Windows Hardware Compatibility Program are trusted by default. While this is primarily a security-focused change, it also has implications for stability, since poorly signed or outdated drivers have historically been a common source of crashes and performance issues in games. Microsoft has also continued refining the Xbox app itself, which now serves as the backbone for much of this new gaming experience. With Xbox Mode built around it, the app has been optimized to load faster, organize your library more intelligently, and integrate more tightly with features like Game Pass, allowing you to jump between your installed games and your subscription library with far less friction than before. For anyone subscribed to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate or PC Game Pass, this tighter integration means the entire experience of discovering, installing, and launching games feels much more unified compared to the more fragmented experience Windows gaming has offered in the past. To understand that, you have to look at the bigger picture of what Microsoft is trying to accomplish here. For a long time, the biggest advantage consoles had over PCs was simplicity and consistency. You buy a console, you turn it on, and it just works. Games are optimized specifically for that hardware, load times are generally predictable, and there is very little setup required. PC gaming, on the other hand, has always offered more power, more flexibility, better graphics at the high end, mod support, a massive library of games spanning decades, and the ability to upgrade your hardware whenever you want. But that power has always come with complexity. You had to worry about drivers, background processes, inconsistent performance, and yes, that dreaded shader compilation stutter we talked about earlier. What Microsoft appears to be doing with this collection of updates is closing that gap between console simplicity and PC power, without sacrificing what makes PC gaming special in the first place. Xbox Mode gives you that console-like simplicity when you want it, especially valuable on handheld devices, where a traditional desktop interface never made much sense. Advanced shader delivery tackles one of the most technical and frustrating problems in PC gaming at a foundational level, something individual game developers have struggled to solve on their own for years. Improved DirectStorage performance means faster loading and smoother streaming, bringing PC gaming closer to the instant, seamless feel that modern consoles have worked hard to achieve. Native support for next-generation high refresh rate monitors keeps PC gaming at the cutting edge for competitive players who demand every possible advantage. And the reworked update system means your gaming sessions are far less likely to be interrupted by forced restarts. When you put all of these pieces together, it becomes clear that this is not just a random assortment of unrelated features. This is a coordinated strategy from Microsoft to make Windows the definitive gaming platform, whether you're sitting at a high-end gaming desktop, playing on a laptop, holding a handheld gaming PC, or eventually even using something in a living room setup similar to a traditional console. Microsoft's own gaming leadership has stated that these updates are meant to deliver faster load times, smoother gameplay, and a stronger technical foundation for the future of graphics. And game development on Windows, and based on everything we have seen so far, that is exactly the direction things are heading. It is also worth mentioning how this fits into the broader handheld gaming PC boom that has been reshaping the industry. Devices in this category have become incredibly popular because they offer something consoles and traditional gaming laptops cannot easily match: the ability to access your entire PC game library, including titles from multiple storefronts, all in a portable form factor. The problem has always been that running full Windows on a small handheld device came with compromises, mainly around interface usability and battery-efficient performance. By building Xbox Mode directly into Windows 11 and pairing it with performance improvements like advanced shader delivery and enhanced DirectStorage, Microsoft is directly addressing the two biggest weaknesses handheld PCs have faced. This suggests that future handheld devices running Windows could become significantly more competitive with dedicated handheld consoles, offering the best of both worlds: full PC game library access combined with a genuinely comfortable console-like user experience. There's also a competitive angle here that is impossible to ignore. Other companies have been developing their own approaches to portable and living room PC gaming, and Microsoft clearly does not want Windows to fall behind in that race. By investing heavily in making Windows feel more like a purpose-built gaming platform rather than a general-purpose operating system that happens to run games, Microsoft is positioning itself to compete directly with alternative gaming-focused operating systems that have been gaining traction, particularly in the handheld space. This update can be seen as Microsoft's answer to that competitive pressure, and it is a fairly aggressive one, touching everything from the core rendering pipeline to the interface you interact with the moment you turn your device on. For everyday gamers, the practical benefits of all this should become noticeable fairly quickly once the update fully rolls out to your device. You should start to see fewer stutters and hitches when launching new games, especially during that critical first hour when shader compilation traditionally causes the most problems. Loading times in large, asset-heavy games should improve thanks to the DirectStorage enhancements, meaning less time staring at loading screens and more time actually playing. If you own a handheld gaming PC, you should notice a much smoother, more intuitive interface once Xbox mode becomes available on your device, making it feel less like you are wrestling with a shrunken-down desktop and more like you are using a device that was actually designed for handheld gaming from the start. And if you have a high refresh rate monitor, especially one of the newer displays pushing beyond the traditional competitive gaming standards, you should see better, more consistent performance now that Windows properly supports these speeds at a native level. Of course, it is worth setting realistic expectations here as well. Updates of this scale do not roll out to every single device overnight. Microsoft has been rolling these features out gradually, starting with select markets and specific device types before expanding more broadly. And features like advanced shader delivery require game developers to actually implement support on their end before players see the full benefit in any individual title. This means that while the technology itself is groundbreaking, the real-world impact will grow over time as more games and more devices adopt these systems. It is less like flipping a switch and instantly transforming every game you own, and more like watching a gradual wave of improvements roll out across the entire PC gaming ecosystem over the coming months. Still, the direction is unmistakable. Microsoft is treating Windows as a gaming platform in a way we have not really seen before, at least not with this level of coordinated investment across interface design, rendering technology, storage performance, and hardware compatibility all at once. For years, PC gamers have had to rely on third-party tools, community fixes, and manual tweaking to get the smoothest possible experience out of their systems. This update signals a shift toward Microsoft, taking direct responsibility for solving these problems at the operating system level, which is honestly long overdue given how central gaming has become to the Windows ecosystem. If you have been holding off on building or upgrading a gaming PC because you were worried about the usual frustrations that come with PC gaming, this might be the moment that changes your mind. And if you already own a gaming PC or a handheld device running Windows, keep an eye on your update settings over the coming weeks, because these changes could be arriving on your machine sooner than you think. Making sure your system is up to date, your graphics drivers are current through the properly signed channels, and your Xbox app is refreshed will help you take full advantage of everything this update has to offer the moment it becomes available to you. At the end of the day, this collection of updates represents one of the most ambitious attempts yet to modernize PC gaming from the ground up. Whether it fully lives up to the hype will depend on how quickly developers adopt these new tools and how smoothly the rollout continues across the massive variety of hardware that makes up the PC gaming world. But based on everything Microsoft has revealed so far, from Xbox mode transforming the way we interact with our gaming devices, to advanced shader delivery tackling stutter at its root, to DirectStorage pushing loading times and streaming performance to new levels, this genuinely feels like a turning point. PC gaming has always promised the best of everything, but it has also demanded patience and technical know-how in return. This update is Microsoft's clearest attempt yet to keep that promise while removing the demands, and if it delivers on even half of what has been announced, the way we play games on Windows is about to look very different. Let's also take a moment to talk about how this affects developers, because their experience with these tools is just as important as the end result players eventually see. Building games for Windows has traditionally meant dealing with an enormous range of possible hardware configurations, which makes testing and optimization a genuinely difficult job. A studio might spend months tuning a game to run well on one combination of graphics card and processor, only to discover that a slightly different setup produces completely different performance results. Advanced shader delivery helps reduce this burden significantly because instead of leaving shader compilation to happen unpredictably on each individual player's machine, developers can prepare and package shaders in advance during their own production process. This shifts a huge amount of the unpredictability away from the player's living room and back into the development studio, where it can be tested, refined, and controlled far more carefully. Microsoft has also been expanding its developer tools alongside these changes, including updates to Pix, its performance analysis and debugging tool, Adding features like a tile mappings viewer and hardware-specific GPU counters inside the system monitor view, these tools allow developers to look much more closely at how their games behave across different GPU architectures, helping them catch performance issues before a game ever reaches players, rather than relying on post-launch patches to fix problems that frustrated early adopters. This developer-focused investment matters more than it might seem at first glance, because it directly determines how quickly all of these consumer-facing benefits actually show up in the games you play. A feature like advanced shader delivery is only as good as the number of studios that choose to implement it, and by making the tools easier to use and opening access to all developers rather than a limited group of partners, Microsoft is trying to encourage broad, fast adoption across the industry. The same is true for DirectStorage improvements in the new game asset conditioning library, both of which are designed to fit naturally into existing production pipelines rather than forcing studios to rebuild their workflows from scratch. When new technology is difficult or expensive for developers to adopt, it tends to stay niche for years. When it is designed to slot in with minimal friction, adoption tends to happen much faster. And based on how Microsoft has structured this rollout, it looks like they learned that lesson from previous initiatives that struggled to gain traction. It is also worth thinking about how this update fits into the ongoing conversation around Windows as an operating system in general, beyond just gaming. Windows has always had to balance being a productivity tool for businesses, a creative platform for professionals, and a gaming platform for millions of players, all within the same software. In the past, this balancing act sometimes meant gaming features felt like an afterthought, bolted onto a system primarily designed for office work. What we are seeing now looks different. Gaming-specific improvements are being built directly into the core update cycle rather than treated as a separate track, appearing alongside security patches, accessibility improvements, and general quality of life changes in the same monthly and feature updates. This integration suggests that Microsoft now views gaming performance as a core pillar of the Windows experience, rather than a secondary feature, which is a meaningful shift in priorities for a company that has sometimes been criticized in the past for not paying enough attention to the needs of PC gamers specifically. Something else worth considering is how this might influence the broader PC hardware market. When an operating system makes foundational improvements to how storage, shaders, and graphics pipelines work, it can change what kind of hardware actually makes sense to buy. Faster, more efficient use of storage through improved DirectStorage support might reduce the pressure to buy the absolute fastest and most expensive storage drives just to get good load times, since the software layer itself is becoming more efficient at moving data. Similarly, if advanced shader delivery genuinely reduces the burden of real-time shader compilation, it could ease some of the strain on lower-end and mid-range graphics cards, potentially making games feel smoother on hardware that previously struggled with stutter even though it technically had enough raw power to run a game. This could be particularly good news for gamers who are not upgrading their hardware every year and are instead trying to get the most out of a system they already own. There is also the question of how competitive gaming and esports communities might respond to these changes. Consistency is everything in competitive gaming, where a single unexpected stutter or frame drop can be the difference between winning and losing a match. Features like native support for ultra-high refresh rate monitors and more predictable shader handling could make Windows an even more attractive platform for serious competitive players who previously might have leaned toward heavily optimized, stripped-down configurations to minimize any possible inconsistency. If Microsoft can deliver genuinely reliable performance improvements at the operating system level, it reduces the amount of manual tweaking and third-party optimization software that competitive players have historically relied on just to feel confident their system will not let them down during an important match. And looking further ahead, it seems clear that this update is not really a single, isolated event, but rather the visible portion of a much longer-term strategy. Microsoft has been laying groundwork across multiple fronts simultaneously, from the interface layer with Xbox Mode, to the rendering layer with advanced shader delivery, to the storage layer with DirectStorage improvements, to the hardware compatibility layer with native support for new monitor technology. Each of these pieces reinforces the others, and the mention of machine learning becoming a core part of real-time graphics rendering suggests that future updates will likely continue building on the same foundation, potentially introducing even more automated intelligent performance optimization that adapts to your specific system without requiring manual input. If that trend continues, we could be looking at a future version of Windows that essentially tunes itself in real time for whatever game you are playing and whatever hardware you happen to be running it on, removing much of the guesswork that has defined PC gaming setup for decades. What do you think about all of these changes? Are you excited to try Xbox Mode on your own setup, or are you more interested in seeing how advanced shader delivery performs once more games start supporting it? Let us know in the comments below, and if you found this breakdown helpful, consider subscribing so you do not miss the next update as Microsoft continues rolling these features out across the PC gaming world.